My point is simply that we, as a culture, need to emphasize and understand why our system is great, and value its preservation and protection from threats. We need to believe, and know why we believe, that an overbearing federal government is harmful, and be wary of its creation. Welcome back to Thinking Things Over. If this is your first time here, it's great to have you, and I hope you all enjoy. Today, we are going to talk about the State of the Union. No, not that State of the Union, but in a general sense, how's the nation getting along? You could say we're a little tense. Late last February, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene called for a national divorce. Naturally, this comment garnered a lot of attention and achieved its goal of generating massive online engagement. Obviously, the comment is provocative, despite the fact that she would soon go on to insist that the last thing she would ever want to see in America is a civil war, as if she had no clue that the call for a national divorce could give that impression. That comment from a member of Congress raised some eyebrows. Someday, we'll have a longer chat about the devolution of the Congress from a legislative body into a performing arts center for celebrities, criminals, narcissists, and nepotism babies who also happen to be politicians. But today we just need to understand that this remark, and the others that make the headlines from both sides, are not good faith arguments intended to further productive national discourse. They are almost exclusively intended to attract social media clicks, make the headlines, and earn a segment with the cable news host. So, understand that outrage-generating comments are often designed to generate outrage. But, for the sake of argument, let's take Marjorie's statement more seriously than we should. We do not need a national divorce. We simply need a restrained federal government. I will explain exactly how this works and why it's important, but first we should be clear on what exactly she's saying. But it's really not clear what she's saying, and it might not even matter to her whether or not it does. She might not want it to, so that she can't be pinned down to a particular stance. On the one hand, in her viral tweet, she says plainly, "We need a national divorce." But in her follow-up interview on Fox News, she says,
"The last thing I ever want to see in America is a civil war. No one wants that. At least everyone I know would never want that. But it's going that direction, and we have to do something about it."
Okay, so you tweeted on February 20th that we need a national divorce. The next day, on February 21st, you explained that you and everyone you know is against the Civil War, but that we're on track for it, and it needs to be stopped. But in the same tweet where you posted the clip, you write, "National divorce is not civil war, but becoming a necessary reality because of our irreconcilable differences." So what's a national divorce? Not a civil war? We're trying to avoid a civil war, but we should also pursue a national divorce? Clearly she's giving a lot of mixed signals. And again, it doesn't really matter what point she's trying to convey exactly, or if she's even trying to convey any real point, because the whole media frenzy surrounding the comments is the real objective. It's not about putting forth an argument for the good of the nation. It's about personal exposure and attention. But there are real debates to be had about the topic. How should different people, different states, different lifestyles, cultures, worldviews, ideologies, and more coexist in a vast nation? Believe it or not, Marjorie does actually nibble on the answer, although it's rendered nearly unintelligible through her sloppy, principled politician charade. In the same tweet where she calls for a national divorce, she continues that we need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. If we can ignore the secessionist undertones, maybe overtones, coming from the word separate for a moment, there is, sort of, something here. It's not presented eloquently, but the answer to our problems is a beautiful thing called federalism. So, what exactly she means by separate is up for debate, but we should allow different states a lot of leeway to operate differently, with different rules and regulations at the state level, rather than with uniform ones at the national level. Okay, what is federalism? Federalism is a system of government where the governmental powers are divided between the central federal government and regional state governments. According to the American Constitution, which outlines the structure of the government, there are certain powers which are specifically granted to the federal government, the enumerated powers, and others that are left to the states, according to the 10th Amendment. I talked about this topic a bit more in another video, which you can check out after this one. But the main idea is that the federal government isn't the end-all be-all authority within the US. The individual states retain rights of governance, and both federal level and state level governance must fall within the bounds of the Constitution. Okay, what does all this have to do with a national divorce? Well, one of the beautiful things about America is that our system is set up such that more localized levels of governance retain robust authority to self-govern. We don't all have to live under the same rules nationwide. If they want to have different rules in California and Alabama, that's fine. If Alaska and New Jersey want to have different policies, Good. If Wyoming, Florida, and Vermont don't see eye to eye on some issues, great. They don't all have to live under the same set of rules. Not everyone needs to compromise on everything at all times. At more localized levels, we can have more individualized rules, and people can live as they wish, not as politicians from distant lands would like to make them live. Now, there is a place for the federal government, but it should be limited. We only need the federal government to manage the broad, fundamental things that we all largely agree on. And again, these things are listed in the Constitution. This includes things like establishing and managing a national currency, creating and operating post offices, and creating standards of weights and measures. There are others, but the point is that the federal level issues are supposed to be basic things that tie us together as a nation. You are not supposed to feel that the federal government is a divisive force or has a looming regulatory presence in your day-to-day life. Back to Marjorie's comment, we don't need a national divorce. We need to live and let live. We should embrace regional differences and respect the decisions and power of state and local governments. We should be skeptical of the authority and intentions of those who pursue broad, nationwide rules and regulations for issues that are not of basic, fundamental importance. Federalism allows our diverse nation to exist and to thrive. Our states are individual pieces of a greater whole, stronger together than not. And none of this talk about the virtues of federalism is to suggest that we don't have it. We do have federalism, and it is something that is important and allows our diverse nation to flourish. But it is under constant threat from those who want to achieve a strong centralized government. And in a lot of ways, that centralization has already gone too far. My point is simply that we, as a culture, need to emphasize and understand why our system is great, and value its preservation and protection from threats. We need to believe, and know why we believe, that an overbearing federal government is harmful, and be wary of its creation. Now, an analysis of federalism, states' rights, and a national divorce would be incomplete without talking about the Civil War that we did have. But frankly, not much needs to be said. States should have robust authority in their governance, but again, we do need to agree on the broad stuff. And although the Confederate States would have told you otherwise, the enslavement of people on account of racial or ethnic characteristics was wrong, and the United States could not long endure as a unified whole without reconciling the predominantly regional practice of slavery with a national philosophy rooted in the recognition of the value and the necessity of personal liberty and political freedom. But, fortunately, the political issues of today are not of the fundamental nature that slavery was. Slavery could not coexist with a free society. That's why it was abolished, and why its defenders needed to attempt to create an entirely different nation. No issue today rises to that level of foundational importance. That is not to say that the battles we fight today aren't important, that the culture wars of now won't matter in directing our future, but that there are no problems so key to the very existence of the nation that we need to worry about a national divorce or a civil war, so long as we retain any respect for self-governance, states' rights, and federalism. This has been another episode of Thinking Things Over. I hope you enjoyed it. If you watched the end of this video, subscribe for more and drop a like. I look forward to seeing you again. I'm Jonathan McCartney, and I thank you for your time.